It was too big, she begged for help, and what he did surprised everyone. But that morning, as the sun rose softly over the city, casting a warm golden light through her new apartment window, she realized that life sometimes had surprises waiting that even she couldn't plan for. She had just moved into a small but charming apartment in a busy neighborhood. The building was old, with creaky wooden floors, narrow hallways, and a sense of history that made it feel cozy yet slightly intimidating. Emma had chosen this place because it reminded her of her childhood home, and she liked the idea of keeping her grandmother's memories alive. The reason for her excitement that day was the arrival of a vintage wardrobe that had belonged to her grandmother. It was a beautiful piece of furniture, carved from dark wood with intricate designs on its doors. She remembered visiting her grandmother as a child and being fascinated by this wardrobe. It had always held something magical to her, a sense of history, warmth, and family. Today, she thought, it would become part of her own life, carrying memories into her new chapter. She had hired movers to bring the wardrobe to her building, but they had faced delays and finally left, explaining that the hallway was too narrow and it was too heavy for just one person to carry alone. Emma stood in the hallway, staring at the massive wardrobe. It looked even bigger than she had remembered, and the thought of moving it herself made her stomach churn. The hallway was narrow, barely wider than the wardrobe itself, and the floorboards creaked under even the lightest touch. She tried to push it gently, hoping maybe, just maybe, she could wiggle it forward a little, but it didn't budge. Not an inch. She pushed with her hands, then tried lifting from the bottom, straining her arms and back. Her legs shook and sweat formed on her forehead. The wardrobe stayed put, unmoved by her strongest efforts. Emma sighed and leaned against the wall. The weight of the wardrobe was only part of the problem. Her worry and frustration felt heavier. She felt a wave of helplessness wash over her. For the first time in a long while, she wished someone could just appear and help her. She looked down the hallway, hoping to see a neighbor passing by or a friendly face who might lend a hand. But the corridor was empty, silent except for the faint hum of the city outside. The morning sunlight glinted off the wooden floor, but it did nothing to brighten her mood. She tried to remember all the advice she had ever heard about moving heavy objects. Lift with your legs, get help, use a dolly, but none of it mattered now. She was alone and the wardrobe seemed impossible to move. Her phone buzzed in her pocket and she pulled it out, hoping maybe someone she knew could come quickly. She called a few friends, but they were busy, caught up in their own lives. She texted her neighbors, explaining the situation, but the replies were slow, polite, but not helpful. Emma felt the weight of isolation more heavily than the wardrobe itself. She had always been independent, yes, but sometimes independence came with the loneliness of knowing that help was not immediately available. She sat down on the floor, exhausted and frustrated. Her fingers brushed against the polished wood of the wardrobe, tracing the carved patterns her grandmother had once admired. A small smile crossed her face despite her struggle. She thought about how her grandmother would have handled this. Perhaps she would have asked for help without hesitation, or perhaps she would have found a clever way to solve it herself. Emma realized that she too needed to find a solution, but at that moment, she didn't know what it could be. She just sat there, breathing heavily, thinking about the impossibility of the task before her. Time passed, and the sun climbed higher in the sky. The hallway seemed narrower with every passing minute, the walls pressing in as if mocking her efforts. Emma tried again, pushing with all her might, but the wardrobe barely shifted. Her arms ached, and her hands were raw from gripping the rough edges. She wanted to scream, but she didn't. Instead, she took a deep breath, trying to calm herself. Frustration and determination mingled inside her. She didn't want to give up, not yet. She stood up slowly, wiped the sweat from her brow, and considered what could be done next. Looking around the building, she noticed small details she hadn't before. A doormat by the door, a small window at the end of the hall, the faded paint on the walls. It was almost as if the building itself was challenging her, testing her resolve. She considered dismantling the wardrobe, but it was complicated, heavy, and she didn't have the right tools. She felt trapped in a situation that seemed impossible to escape on her own. A feeling of desperation began to creep in. What if she couldn't get it in at all? What if the memory she wanted to keep in her home had to stay somewhere else? The thought made her chest tighten. As she sat back down, exhausted, she noticed movement at the far end of the hallway. A man was walking toward her, carrying a small toolbox. His steps were steady, and there was a calm confidence in the way he approached. Emma watched him carefully, unsure whether he would even stop or help. Her heart lifted slightly when he stopped in front of the wardrobe and smiled kindly. "Need some help?" he asked. His voice was warm, easy, and full of reassurance. Emma hesitated, her pride battling with her desperation, but finally she nodded. "Yes, please, I don't know how to move this," she admitted, a little embarrassed. The man, who introduced himself as Alex, knelt beside the wardrobe and examined it closely. He measured angles with his hands, tested the weight, and considered the narrow hallway. Emma watched him, amazed at how calm and patient he was. Unlike her frantic pushing and pulling, he moved with purpose, thinking through every step. She felt a spark of hope. Maybe this time someone could help her. Maybe this wardrobe didn't have to remain stuck forever. As they discussed possible solutions, Emma felt a mixture of relief and curiosity. Who was this man? Why was he so willing to help a stranger? But the thought didn't stay long because Alex began explaining his plan. It was simple but smart. He wanted to try moving it carefully by adjusting the doors and tilting it slightly. He even suggested shifting some smaller items around in the hallway to make space. Emma listened intently, realizing that what seemed impossible to her alone might be easy with the right approach and some help. By now, a few neighbors had noticed the commotion and peeked from their doors, curious about the struggle. Emma felt a little embarrassed, but also grateful that Alex was handling the situation. There was something reassuring about having someone who not only offered help, but also knew exactly what to do. She realized that even though she had always been independent, there were moments in life when asking for help was not a sign of weakness, but a step towards solving a problem. Hours seemed to pass in a matter of minutes as Emma and Alex worked together. The wardrobe moved slowly, a little at a time. Emma's muscles ached, but the shared effort made it less daunting. She realized that problems, no matter how big, could be managed when approached with patience, thought, and sometimes the help of someone unexpected. By the end of the morning, Emma felt a mixture of exhaustion, relief, and gratitude. The wardrobe was still not completely in place, but she knew it was only a matter of time. More importantly, she realized that even in moments of struggle, hope could appear in the form of a stranger willing to lend a hand. The morning had started with frustration and helplessness, but it had turned into a lesson in patience, collaboration, and trust. Emma sat down again on the floor, this time smiling, not from defeat but from the knowledge that help could arrive when least expected. She didn't know what the rest of the day would bring, but for now she felt ready to face the challenge, knowing she wasn't alone. Emma watched Alex carefully as he crouched beside the wardrobe, his hands brushing over the carved wood, examining every corner as if he could understand its secrets by touch alone. He didn't rush, but every movement was precise, purposeful, and deliberate. Emma, still catching her breath from her earlier struggle, felt a mix of relief and curiosity. She had been so desperate that morning, unsure if anyone would ever help her, and now, a stranger was not only offering assistance but seemed to know exactly what to do. She could hardly believe it. Alex looked up and smiled gently. "This is tricky," he said, "but I think we can manage it if we approach it step by step." His calm voice was a comfort, and Emma nodded, feeling a little more confident. She realized that her panic earlier had made the wardrobe seem even bigger and heavier than it actually was. Now, with Alex's steady presence, it looked like a challenge that could be overcome. He began by carefully measuring the width of the hallway and the height of the wardrobe, turning it slightly to see which angle might allow it to fit through without scraping the walls. Emma noticed how thoughtful he was, taking into account every little detail that she had overlooked in her panic. The handles, the legs, the doors, all of it mattered. She admired how focused he was, and a sense of hope began to bloom in her chest. "First, we need to see if we can tilt it slightly," Alex said. "It's heavy, but if we lift it from the right side and pivot slowly, we might be able to move it just a few inches at a time." He demonstrated by lifting one corner gently, then setting it down, showing Emma that even the largest obstacle could be broken into small, manageable steps. Emma watched intently, taking mental notes. She had never seen anyone approach a problem this way before. As they began to move the wardrobe slowly, Emma tried to help, holding one side and pushing lightly as Alex guided it. It didn't move easily, but the slight progress was encouraging. Each small shift seemed like a victory. Passers-by from the building began to peek out of their doors, curious about the activity in the hallway. Some whispered to each other while others offered suggestions, but Alex remained focused, barely acknowledging them. Emma felt proud of him and also grateful. Alex paused and wiped the sweat from his forehead. "We'll need a little more room," he said. Emma realized he was right. The hallway was narrow, and a few small items, shoes, mats, a pile of boxes, were blocking the best path. Together they cleared the way, carefully moving objects without scratching the floors or walls. Emma felt a small thrill of anticipation. It was almost like solving a puzzle, each piece needing to be in exactly the right place before the next step could be taken. "Okay," Alex said, stepping back to assess the situation. "I think we should remove the doors. That will make it lighter and easier to handle." Emma was surprised. She hadn't thought of that. The idea of taking apart her grandmother's treasured wardrobe made her nervous, but she trusted Alex. His hands were steady, and there was no hint of carelessness in his actions. With his guidance, she carefully removed the doors, placing them aside with soft cloths to protect the carvings. Once the doors were off, Alex lifted one side again, this time with Emma helping, and slowly pivoted the wardrobe. Inch by inch, it began to move through the hallway. Emma could hardly believe her eyes. The impossible task she had faced just hours ago was now in motion, all because of patience, planning, and teamwork. Her excitement grew with every small shift. Neighbors had gathered by now, drawn by the unusual sight of the large wardrobe being maneuvered through the narrow corridor. Some clapped softly as it moved, while others whispered words of encouragement. Emma felt a mixture of embarrassment and pride. She had struggled alone, but now, with Alex's help, she was part of something bigger, something almost magical in its simplicity. Two people working together to overcome a challenge. Alex explained each step as he worked, not rushing Emma, but making her feel included. "Hold this side steady," he said. "Tilt it slowly, don't rush. Good, just like that." His voice was patient, and Emma felt herself learning, understanding how obstacles could be handled carefully rather than through brute force. She realized that the wardrobe hadn't been the problem all along. The real challenge was her own panic and the feeling of being trapped. With guidance and support, even the heaviest burdens could be moved. At one point, the wardrobe got stuck again. Emma's heart sank, but Alex didn't panic. He stepped back, studied the angles, and thought for a moment. Then he smiled. "We just need to shift the legs slightly, that's all." With gentle movements and a few careful adjustments, the wardrobe budged once more. Emma was amazed. She had been ready to give up before, but Alex's calm approach had made it possible to continue. Time seemed to stretch as they worked together. Each small success brought relief and laughter. Emma joked about how she had almost given up hope, and Alex laughed too, making the atmosphere light and friendly. Even though the wardrobe was still heavy, the tension of the morning had transformed into a sense of teamwork and accomplishment. Emma realized that a difficult task could feel almost fun when shared with the right person. As they continued, Emma noticed the way Alex handled every detail with care. He adjusted his grip, shifted slowly to avoid scratching the floor, and made sure nothing was damaged. She couldn't help but think that this level of attention to detail was rare. Most people might have tried to force the wardrobe, risking scratches or accidents, but Alex's methodical, thoughtful approach made all the difference. Emma admired him silently and felt a growing sense of gratitude. By midday, the wardrobe was halfway through the hallway. It had been a slow, careful process, but the progress was undeniable. Emma's muscles ached, but she was energized by the success. She realized that patience and persistence could overcome even the largest challenges. Alex nodded encouragingly as he adjusted the position once more. "Almost there," he said. "Just a little more effort and we're done." His confidence was contagious, and Emma felt a renewed sense of determination. The final maneuver was tricky. They had to angle the wardrobe just right to clear the last corner. Emma held her breath, watching as Alex lifted and shifted carefully. Inch by inch, the wardrobe moved. The neighbors leaned forward, holding their breath along with her. Finally, with a gentle push, the wardrobe cleared the hallway and settled in Emma's apartment. A cheer went up from those watching, and Emma laughed with relief and joy. The impossible task was completed. Emma turned to Alex, her eyes shining. "I don't know how to thank you," she said. "I thought I would never manage this alone." Alex smiled modestly. "It's okay," he said. "Sometimes all you need is a little help and a different perspective. That's all." Emma felt a warmth in her chest. It wasn't just about the wardrobe. It was about the kindness, patience, and willingness of someone to step in when needed. As they stepped back to admire the wardrobe in its new place, Emma realized how much she had learned. She had been desperate, frustrated, and ready to give up, but patience, planning, and help had turned the day around. Alex had shown her that even the biggest obstacles could be overcome with the right approach. She felt grateful, not just for the help, but for the lesson that even strangers could bring light and support into moments of struggle. The sun had moved high in the sky, filling the apartment with warm light. Emma stood beside her grandmother's wardrobe, feeling a mixture of pride and joy. She had faced the impossible, and with Alex's help, she had succeeded. She realized that life often brought challenges that seemed too big to handle alone, but help could appear in unexpected ways, and with patience, determination, and teamwork, even the heaviest burdens could be lifted. Emma smiled at Alex. "I'll never forget this," she said softly. "You didn't just help me move a wardrobe. You reminded me that challenges can be faced if we stay calm and work together." Alex simply nodded, a modest smile on his face. It wasn't about recognition for him. It was about helping someone in need. Emma felt inspired, not only by his skill but by his quiet kindness. As they cleaned up the small mess from the move, Emma realized that her apartment didn't just hold her belongings. It held a memory of teamwork, perseverance, and unexpected friendship. That morning she had been overwhelmed by a heavy wardrobe, but by the afternoon she had gained much more. A lesson in patience, a new friend, and the knowledge that even the most difficult challenges could be overcome. After the wardrobe was halfway through the hallway, Emma felt a mixture of relief and anticipation. The hard part seemed almost behind them, yet she knew the last corner could be tricky. The hallway narrowed near the apartment door, and the floorboards in that section creaked ominously under the weight. She glanced at Alex, who was crouched beside the wardrobe, studying it as if it were a puzzle waiting to be solved. He was calm, patient, and focused, and Emma couldn't help but feel reassured by his presence. "Almost there," Alex said, his voice steady. "We just need to move it slowly, one careful step at a time. Emma nodded, gripping the side of the wardrobe tightly, trying not to let her exhaustion show. Her arms ached from the constant lifting and pushing, and her legs trembled slightly, but she refused to give up. After all, the wardrobe wasn't just a piece of furniture. It was a part of her family's history, a memory of her grandmother that she wanted to preserve. Alex adjusted his position, placing his hands under the wardrobe to lift it slightly. He motioned for Emma to tilt it gently. Inch by inch, the massive piece began to move. Emma marveled at his skill. Every movement was deliberate, every adjustment precise. She realized that it wasn't just strength that mattered, it was strategy, patience, and careful observation. She felt grateful that Alex had appeared just when she had felt completely helpless. As they worked, Emma noticed that a few neighbors had gathered outside their doors, watching quietly. Some whispered encouragements while others simply observed in amazement. One elderly woman even clapped softly when the wardrobe moved a little further. Emma blushed but smiled, feeling a sense of community she hadn't expected. It was as if the entire building was rooting for them, silently cheering on this strange yet determined team effort. Alex paused for a moment, wiping his forehead with the back of his hand. "We need to shift the base slightly," he said. "It's resting unevenly, which makes it harder to move. Once we adjust it, it should slide more smoothly." He demonstrated carefully, showing Emma exactly where to lift and how to tilt it. She followed his instructions, feeling a surge of pride when the wardrobe responded to their combined effort. The momentary victories, however small, filled her with energy and motivation. Emma's mind wandered briefly to how different life would have been if she had tried to move this alone. The thought made her shiver. She had underestimated the weight, the narrow hallway, and her own limits. Yet now, with Alex's help, the impossible felt possible. She realized that sometimes asking for help wasn't a weakness. It was a smart decision, and a reminder that people could surprise you with their generosity. They continued to work steadily, moving the wardrobe just a few inches at a time. Emma noticed that Alex had an uncanny ability to anticipate problems before they happened. He shifted the angle slightly before it scraped the walls, adjusted the base before it got stuck, and even checked the floor for weak spots. Emma felt like she was learning a secret skill just by watching him. It wasn't magic, just careful thought and attention, but it felt magical in the moment. Suddenly, the wardrobe got stuck again at the corner near the apartment door. Emma's heart sank. She had hoped this would be the easiest part, but the angle was tricky. She could feel the frustration building inside her. Alex didn't panic. He stepped back and examined the wardrobe carefully, tapping his fingers on the floor as if calculating the best move. "Okay," he said calmly, "we need to lift it slightly from this side and pivot it a little more. Watch my hands and follow my lead." Emma took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. Her arms were trembling, but she focused on Alex's instructions. With careful effort, they lifted and shifted the wardrobe. Slowly, it began to turn. Every inch was hard-earned, but they persisted. The neighbors had stopped whispering now, watching in silent awe as this delicate dance unfolded. Emma couldn't help but feel proud, not just of herself but of Alex, whose patience and ingenuity made it all possible. As they worked, Alex explained his method in a calm, steady voice. "Sometimes it's not about pushing harder," he said. "It's about thinking, adjusting, and using small movements to achieve big results." Emma nodded, realizing how true this was. She had been so focused on brute strength earlier that she hadn't considered the smarter approach. Watching Alex now, she understood that patience, planning, and careful execution could overcome obstacles that seemed insurmountable. Finally, after several tense minutes, the wardrobe made it through the narrowest part of the hallway. Emma's chest tightened with relief, and a wide smile spread across her face. The impossible was happening. What had seemed too big, too heavy, and too complicated was now slowly finding its place in her apartment. The neighbors who had gathered quietly murmured their approval, some clapping softly, others shaking their heads in amazement. Alex adjusted the wardrobe one last time, checking to ensure it wouldn't scratch the floor or the walls. He nodded to Emma, signaling that the hardest part was over. Emma laughed, a sound of pure relief and joy, and thanked him again. "I don't know how I would have done this without you," she said. "I thought it was impossible." Alex smiled modestly. "Sometimes it just takes a little help and a different way of looking at things," he replied. Emma realized that this experience was more than just moving furniture. It was a lesson in perseverance, teamwork, and the unexpected kindness of strangers. She had learned that challenges, no matter how daunting, could be tackled with patience, planning, and a willingness to accept help. The wardrobe was heavy and unwieldy, but it had become a symbol of something greater, the power of collaboration and human kindness. As they carefully maneuvered the last few inches, Emma's excitement grew. The wardrobe was finally positioned in the middle of the room, almost exactly where she had envisioned it. She stepped back to admire it, feeling a sense of accomplishment she hadn't felt in a long time. The intricate carvings gleamed in the sunlight streaming through the window, and for a moment, Emma was transported back to her childhood, remembering the warmth and comfort of her grandmother's home. Alex helped her adjust the last few details, making sure the wardrobe was perfectly aligned. Emma could hardly believe how smoothly it had gone after the struggle of the morning. She felt a wave of gratitude for Alex, who had turned what had seemed like an impossible task into a manageable, even enjoyable experience. It wasn't just his strength, it was his patience, his careful thinking, and his calm presence that had made the difference. By now, the hallway was quiet again. The neighbors had returned to their apartments, some still peeking curiously from behind doors and windows. Emma felt a sense of satisfaction and pride. She had faced a huge challenge, and with Alex's help had overcome it. The wardrobe was more than just furniture. It was a testament to patience, teamwork, and the kindness of someone willing to help when it mattered most. As Emma looked around her apartment, she realized how much this experience had taught her. She had always valued independence, but she now understood that accepting help didn't diminish her strength. Instead, it created an opportunity for connection, learning, and success. She felt inspired, not just by the wardrobe, but by the process, by the shared effort, and by the realization that even the most difficult challenges could be overcome with the right approach. Emma turned to Alex, her eyes shining. "I'll never forget this," she said softly. "It's not just about moving a wardrobe. You've shown me something important, how patience, planning, and help can make even the hardest things possible." Alex nodded with a modest smile. "I'm glad it worked out," he said. "That's all that matters." Emma felt a warmth in her chest, a mixture of gratitude and admiration. She knew she had found not only a helper that day, but someone whose approach to challenges she could learn from. As they cleaned up the small mess from moving the wardrobe, Emma reflected on the morning. It had started with frustration, panic, and exhaustion, but now it had turned into a story of perseverance, teamwork, and quiet triumph. She realized that life sometimes presented obstacles that seemed impossible, but with patience, careful thought, and a little help from others, even the heaviest burdens could be moved. The wardrobe now stood in place, sturdy and elegant, a symbol of both her grandmother's memory and the unexpected kindness of a stranger who had turned a difficult day into a meaningful experience. Emma smiled, feeling proud, grateful, and inspired. The experience had taught her not just about moving furniture, but about the power of patience, collaboration, and human connection. She knew that she would carry this lesson with her for a long time, remembering how what seemed impossible could be achieved with determination, care, and a helping hand. Emma had been standing beside the wardrobe, catching her breath, her muscles aching from the long morning of pushing, lifting, and pivoting. The wardrobe was finally halfway into her apartment, but there was one final challenge. The corner near the wall was tight, the space too narrow, and the weight of the furniture made every small movement a huge effort. Emma's heart sank a little as she realized that the struggle wasn't quite over. She had hoped the hardest part was behind her, but now it seemed the real test was just beginning. Alex, however, didn't show any sign of worry. He crouched beside the wardrobe, examining it closely, his fingers tracing the edges as if searching for a hidden solution. Emma watched him, fascinated by his calm determination. Every movement was deliberate, calculated, and purposeful. Unlike her, who had been panicking earlier in the morning, Alex seemed to have a clear plan forming in his mind. "We're very close," he said. "I think I have an idea that will make this easier." Emma tilted her head, curious. "What do you mean?" she asked. She had been following his instructions for hours, and his methodical approach had already moved the wardrobe further than she had imagined possible. She trusted him, but she wondered what his next step would be. Alex smiled reassuringly. "I think we should partially disassemble it," he said. "If we take off a few more parts, it will become much easier to maneuver." Emma's eyes widened. The wardrobe was an antique, a beautiful piece that had belonged to her grandmother. The thought of taking it apart made her nervous. "Are you sure?" she asked. "I don't want to damage it." Alex shook his head gently. "Don't worry," he said. "I know how to do this carefully. Nothing will be harmed. We'll just remove what's necessary to make it fit." Emma hesitated for a moment, but she realized that she didn't have any other choice. The wardrobe was too heavy and the space too tight. She nodded, trusting him completely. Alex went to work, carefully loosening screws and adjusting the hinges. Emma watched as he removed the decorative doors first, placing them on a soft blanket to prevent scratches. He then focused on the back panel, which added significant weight. With gentle movements, he detached it, showing Emma how careful planning could make even the heaviest object manageable. She was amazed at his skill and patience. Every step was precise, and every precaution was taken to preserve the wardrobe's beauty. Once the additional parts were removed, Alex lifted one side again, signaling Emma to help tilt it slightly. To her astonishment, the wardrobe moved much more easily now. It still required effort, but the struggle was no longer impossible. Emma felt a surge of relief and gratitude. She realized that sometimes a clever solution was all it took to overcome a seemingly insurmountable problem. What had appeared impossible was now becoming achievable. Neighbors had gathered quietly in the hallway, intrigued by the unusual activity. Some had been watching since the morning, curious about the massive wardrobe that had caused so much commotion. They whispered to each other in amazement as they observed Alex's careful maneuvers. Emma noticed the admiration in their eyes, but she felt more focused on the task at hand. She had come so far, and she wasn't about to stop now. Alex adjusted the wardrobe's angle, guiding it slowly toward the final corner. Emma followed his instructions, gripping the side tightly and moving in unison with him. Inch by inch, the wardrobe shifted. The effort required careful coordination, and they communicated constantly. "Tilt a little more," Alex instructed. "Good, now slowly push forward." Emma's arms ached, but she refused to give up. She was determined to see this through, and Alex's guidance made every movement feel purposeful. Suddenly, the wardrobe seemed to catch again, wedged against the narrow hallway wall. Emma's heart skipped a beat. She was exhausted, and the thought of being stuck here again made her anxious. But Alex didn't panic. He crouched beside the wardrobe, examining it carefully. "We just need a small adjustment," he said calmly. "I have a way to get it through without damaging anything." Emma watched him, her curiosity piqued. She couldn't imagine what he had in mind. To her surprise, Alex began using small, soft wedges under the wardrobe's base, lifting it slightly to create just enough space to pivot. Then, with careful coordination, he tilted and rotated it slowly. Emma followed his lead, pushing gently but firmly as he guided the wardrobe through the final tight space. It was a delicate dance, requiring patience, focus, and trust. Emma's heart raced as she realized that the wardrobe was moving again, inch by inch, toward its final position. The neighbors watched in astonishment as the wardrobe gradually turned, navigating the narrow corner with precision. Some whispered words of admiration, while others clapped quietly in support. Emma couldn't believe her eyes. The massive, heavy wardrobe, which had seemed impossible to move just hours earlier, was finally finding its place. She felt a sense of relief and joy she had never experienced before. The impossible was happening right in front of her. Alex guided the wardrobe into its final position, making sure it was perfectly aligned against the wall. Emma's apartment, which had felt cramped and challenging, now looked spacious and welcoming with the wardrobe in place. The intricate carvings caught the sunlight streaming through the window, and Emma felt a surge of pride and happiness. She couldn't stop smiling. It wasn't just the wardrobe. It was the process, the effort, and the triumph over something that had seemed insurmountable. As they stepped back to admire their work, Emma turned to Alex with gratitude shining in her eyes. "I can't believe you did it," she said. "I thought it was impossible. I don't know how to thank you." Alex smiled modestly. "You don't need to," he said. "Sometimes all it takes is a little patience and the right approach, that's all." Emma felt a warmth in her heart. It wasn't just the wardrobe that mattered. It was the kindness, skill, and thoughtfulness of someone who had stepped in when she needed help most. The neighbors, who had gathered quietly, began to congratulate Emma and Alex. "I can't believe it," one of them said. "It looked impossible," another nodded. "You made it look so easy." Emma laughed, realizing how much effort had gone into moving the wardrobe. It hadn't been easy, and every inch required determination and skill. She felt proud not just of herself, but of Alex, whose clever solution had saved the day. Alex helped Emma reattach the doors, carefully aligning them so that the wardrobe looked as elegant and intact as before. Emma marveled at his patience and precision. He hadn't just moved the wardrobe. He had preserved its beauty, treated it with respect, and turned a stressful challenge into a successful accomplishment. Emma realized that this experience had taught her more than just how to move furniture. It had shown her the value of patience, planning, and the quiet generosity of others. By now, the morning had turned into early afternoon. The sun was high in the sky, filling the apartment with warm light. Emma looked around, feeling a sense of completion and satisfaction. The wardrobe was in place, her grandmother's memory was preserved, and she had learned something important about herself and the world. Even the most daunting challenges could be overcome with the right approach, determination, and help from someone who cared. Emma turned to Alex once more. "I'll never forget this day," she said softly. "You didn't just move a wardrobe, you reminded me that problems, no matter how big, can be solved if we stay calm and think carefully." Alex smiled, his eyes kind and modest. "I'm glad it worked out," he said. "That's what matters." Emma nodded, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. She knew that this experience would stay with her forever, not just as a memory of moving a wardrobe, but as a story of perseverance, teamwork, and human kindness. As they cleaned up the small mess left from moving and adjusting the wardrobe, Emma realized something else. The apartment, which had felt cramped and challenging that morning, now felt warm, inviting, and full of possibility. The wardrobe stood proudly, a symbol of both her grandmother's legacy and the unexpected kindness of a stranger who had made the impossible possible. Emma smiled, feeling proud, inspired, and grateful. This experience had taught her that life's challenges were not meant to be faced alone. Sometimes, a little help, careful thinking, and a patient approach could turn a seemingly impossible problem into a success. She had faced frustration, exhaustion, and doubt, yet she had emerged stronger, wiser, and more hopeful. And most importantly, She had learned that even small acts of kindness could create lasting memories and meaningful connections. Emma sat down on the floor beside the wardrobe for a moment, taking a deep breath and savoring the accomplishment. She looked around her apartment, now filled with sunlight, and felt a wave of happiness wash over her. The wardrobe, once an impossible obstacle, was now a part of her home, standing as a reminder of patience, perseverance, and the surprising power of human kindness. The wardrobe finally stood in place, tall and elegant, a perfect fit in Emma's apartment. She stepped back, her hands on her hips, and took a long, deep breath. The morning's struggle, the hours of pushing, lifting, and pivoting, all seemed worth it now. She could hardly believe how heavy and impossible the wardrobe had seemed just hours ago. Now it was a part of her home, and she felt a mixture of pride, relief, and deep gratitude. Alex sat on the floor beside the wardrobe, wiping his hands and smiling quietly. Emma looked at him, feeling a warmth in her heart. "I still can't believe you did all of this," she said softly. "I really didn't think it would be possible." Alex shrugged modestly, his eyes calm and kind. "It's not about me," he said. "It's about finding the right way to do something and being patient. That's all." Emma shook her head, smiling, realizing that his humility made the moment even more special. For a few quiet minutes, they both simply looked at the wardrobe. Sunlight poured through the window, highlighting the dark, polished wood and the intricate carvings her grandmother had loved so much. Emma ran her hand over the surface, marveling at the craftsmanship. She could feel her grandmother's presence in the room, a comforting warmth that made the struggle earlier in the day seem small compared to the satisfaction of this moment. Alex finally stood up and stretched. "Do you want some help arranging things inside?" he asked. Emma nodded eagerly. Though the wardrobe was in place, it was still empty, and she had a few boxes of clothes and personal items waiting to be organized. Together, they carefully lifted boxes and hung clothes, making sure everything was neat and properly placed. Emma realized that even this small task was easier with help. The day had started with frustration and exhaustion, but now it was filled with collaboration and satisfaction. As they worked, Emma found herself talking to Alex in a way she hadn't expected. She shared stories of her grandmother, memories of childhood, and her plans for the apartment. Alex listened attentively, occasionally offering a kind smile or a small piece of advice. Emma noticed that his presence was calming. His steady patience and gentle encouragement made her feel supported, not just physically with the wardrobe but emotionally as well. After arranging the last items inside, Emma stood back and looked at the wardrobe one final time. It was perfect, just as she had imagined. She felt a rush of gratitude toward Alex. "I can't thank you enough," she said. "I don't know what I would have done without you." Alex smiled, shaking his head. "It was nothing," he said. "I'm glad I could help." That's all that matters. Emma knew that his words were true, but she also knew that she would never forget this day, nor the kindness and skill he had shown. The neighbors, who had been quietly observing the progress throughout the day, began to peek from their doors once more. Some brought small smiles, others whispered words of encouragement. Emma felt a sense of community she hadn't expected. What had started as a private struggle in her apartment had become a shared experience. People had witnessed determination, skill, and patience in action. Emma realized that even small acts of perseverance and kindness could inspire others without anyone even noticing. Alex stood and helped Emma sweep the small dust and dirt that had accumulated from the moving process. As they worked side by side, Emma reflected on the lessons she had learned. She had always valued independence, but today she had discovered that accepting help was not a weakness. It was a way to accomplish something greater, to learn, and to create meaningful connections. The wardrobe had been a challenge, but the experience surrounding it had become much more important than the furniture itself. Once the apartment was clean and the wardrobe perfectly in place, Emma offered Alex a cup of tea. They sat together in the small kitchen, laughing quietly and sharing a simple meal. It was a peaceful, intimate moment, a sharp contrast to the chaos of the morning. Emma realized that the day had been about more than just moving a wardrobe. It had been about trust, patience, teamwork, and the kindness of a stranger who had transformed a stressful situation into a meaningful experience. As they talked, Emma noticed how naturally the conversation flowed. She shared her dreams for the future, her hopes for the apartment, and even some of her fears. Alex listened, offering gentle advice when appropriate, but mostly providing a supportive presence. Emma felt lighter, happier, and inspired. She realized that life's challenges could be opportunities, not just obstacles. With patience, careful thinking, and help from others, even the heaviest burdens could be managed and overcome. Time passed quickly, and the afternoon sun began to fade. Emma glanced at the wardrobe one last time, now fully assembled, functional, and beautiful. She ran her fingers over the polished wood, feeling a sense of connection to her grandmother, to her own perseverance, and to the unexpected friendship she had formed that day. The wardrobe had started as a problem, a challenge too big for her to handle alone, but it had ended as a symbol of triumph, teamwork, and kindness. Before leaving, Alex smiled and said, "I'm glad everything worked out. Remember, sometimes a problem just needs a little patience and a fresh perspective." Emma nodded, feeling a deep sense of understanding. She realized that the lessons of the day would stay with her far longer than the memory of physical effort or struggle. Life could be unpredictable and challenging, but with the right approach, no challenge was insurmountable. After Alex left, Emma took a long look around her apartment. Everything felt different now, warmer, more inviting, and full of possibilities. She felt a new sense of confidence in herself, knowing that she could face challenges she had once thought impossible. More importantly, she had learned that help could appear when least expected, and accepting it did not diminish her strength. She smiled at the wardrobe, a beautiful reminder of perseverance, teamwork, and kindness. That evening, Emma reflected on the day with a sense of calm satisfaction. She had been confronted with a problem that seemed too big, too heavy, and too difficult, yet she had overcome it. Not alone, but with the support of someone who had shown patience, skill, and quiet generosity. She realized that life was full of challenges, but also full of opportunities to connect with others, to learn, and to grow. Today had been a perfect example of that truth. Emma knew she would tell this story often, not just about the wardrobe, but about the lessons it taught her. She would tell how a heavy piece of furniture became a symbol of determination, creativity, and kindness. She would remember Alex, the stranger who became a friend, and how his thoughtful approach had transformed a frustrating problem into a meaningful victory. It was a story of hope, patience, and the surprising ways people could help each other. As night fell, Emma sat beside the wardrobe, a sense of peace settling over her. The apartment felt like home for the first time, filled with memories, accomplishment, and the promise of more good days to come. She realized that the wardrobe was not just furniture. It was a reminder of human connection, perseverance, and the importance of never giving up, even when a challenge seemed too big. She smiled softly, knowing that the lessons of today would stay with her for a lifetime. From that day on, Emma's home felt different. Every time she looked at the wardrobe, she remembered the struggle, the patience, the teamwork, and the kindness that had made it possible. She felt inspired to face future challenges with the same calm determination, and to remember that sometimes, a helping hand could make all the difference. The wardrobe was no longer just a piece of furniture. It was a story, a lesson, and a symbol of hope that would remain with her forever. Emma also realized that the day had given her more than just a solved problem. It had given her a new perspective on life, on relationships, and on how small acts of kindness could create lasting impact. She felt a renewed sense of optimism, knowing that she was not alone in facing difficulties. She had learned that challenges, no matter how big, could be overcome with patience, thoughtfulness, and collaboration. As she finally went to bed that night, Emma felt calm, content, and grateful. The wardrobe was secure, her apartment was in order, and she had learned lessons that went far beyond moving furniture. She closed her eyes with a smile, knowing that life, with all its challenges, could be navigated with courage, patience, and the kindness of others. The day had started with struggle and uncertainty, but it ended with accomplishment, friendship, and a deep sense of fulfillment that she would carry with her forever.